An $8 million estate, a 500-acre ranch, more than 50 properties that have 40 plus acres. Think Aspen or Boulder, but without the hype. But I am talking about Sedalia, Colorado, right here in South Denver. And if you're wondering how this town that you've probably never heard of just made the most expensive zip codes list for Denver, stick around. I'm going to show you some things that may change the way you think of South Denver real estate. Hey everybody, it's Alyson, your real estate strategist and realtor for the South Denver area. Now, if you caught my video on Colorado ranchettes, you know that I love giving information on hidden gems in our market. Today, we are talking about something that's been flying under the radar and is full of value. First, let's dive into the numbers in Sedalia. The average home price over the last year is $1.4 million. The average home size, 3,800 square feet. But here's what really starts to set this luxury market apart. The typical lot size in Sedalia, at least 5 acres. And for those of you who love space of a different kind, over the past decade, more than half of the homes that have sold out here have had at least 4 garage spaces. So some of them have more. Hello, that means you can have a workshop, be a car collector. You can do all sorts of things with those more than 4 garage spaces. Sedalia isn't just luxury. It's what I call QCL, quiet, convenient luxury. And what's fascinating about Sedalia is that while everyone's been focused on all the traditional, typical luxury markets all around Denver, and no begrudging that fact, we have lots of beautiful markets here in Denver. Sedalia's quietly gaining traction and getting some serious lookers, and let's talk about why. First, it's the space, the land. I mean, you're gonna get out here and the median lot size is gonna be a half acre, and we have so many options. Pushing up to 40 acres is not uncommon, and then we have these massive multi-hundred acre properties available. I mean, on the small side, we're looking at quarter acre, half acre, and that is rare. It's not very common that you're going to go into Sedalia and be only a quarter or half acre away from your neighbor. So you find one of those, and honestly, with all the trees, you're still probably not going to see them. I'm going to talk about one of my clients who was only on a half acre lot. I could not see their neighbor when we went to sell that house. So even in those situations, it does not feel anything like you're down in the common suburbs. The homes are what dreams are made of, figuratively and literally. We are talking about all of that land, the 4-car garages. It is very rare that I see someone who wants to go live in a very expansive space, have a lot of room from neighbors, and is like, 2-car garage is fine for me. There's usually hobbies involved, toys, you want an ATV, all sorts of things going on. And there's world-class fly fishing that is not far away from Sedalia. So even if you're not bringing an ATV or you don't have 4 cars, there's usually other toys and hobbies that are easily able to fill that garage space. Now, the median age of the home is 1985. So these are not all the most up-to-date homes out here, and that is where the dreaming part also comes in. A lot of times the homes out here need to be updated unless you are comfortable with a little bit older cabin-like aesthetic, which is common out here and fits with this area, this lifestyle, the Colorado feel. The plus to many of these homes is that because we are not in production track style areas, you are often getting a semi-custom home built by a private builder, which means good construction. The bones are good. I hear so often from folks who are calling me, even if they're wanting to buy an existing home, going, I want to really stay away from the COVID build era, those 3 or 4 years that happened then. I don't want a home, even if it was a recent new build, please. I am so worried about the quality. So we are going back to a totally different time and era where people really can appreciate the value of the home, and you've got some good bones and structure to work with. But it still may need a little reimagining. There may be some things you want to change, and certainly bigger, because homes in the 80s were designed smaller. They were more intimate, not as grand of a living space always. Those vaulted ceilings, hit or miss. So there could be some dreaming involved, but you really are going to have some good infrastructure to the house. If I haven't turned you off yet with the fact that you probably need to update the house unless you are just super chill and the land is all you care about, it's important to know that nearly everything you're going to find in Sedalia is going to be a home that is on well and septic. Public water, not really a thing out here. And for a lot of people, that's a plus. But there are some people who are like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to worry about a well going dry. I don't want to have to maintain my septic. So it can be a learning point. If you're a total city person, have never been a country kid, let's at least have the conversation before you rule it out. If you're a country kid at heart, you probably know that it's not so bad. And then the other piece about this area is that once you're off the main drag, which is almost everyone, many of the roads are kind of neighbor maintained. They're dirt. Some of them are paved or asphalt or cared for in a more traditional manner, but a lot of them aren't. The client that I am talking about, that we're going to revisit here in a few minutes, they were on a neighbor maintained road. So everybody pitched in through all the year when the rains took over, when snow took over. There was a couple times a year where they just had to get in and kind of fill in holes and divots and drainage flow so that it was a drivable road. If you let it go, it just becomes a mess. Now, one of the other perks of living on these side dirt roads, these quieter spots, you don't get a lot of looky-loos. There's not a lot of connecting and interlooping all around. So with wanting to be out in these areas, you're looking for peace and quiet, and it helps keep all the other people out of the area and adds to your peace and quiet. Because one of the pluses of being out here is wildlife tromping through. Sometimes moose, it's not as common, it's more elk over here, but every once in a while, bear, mountain lions, turkeys, all sorts of beautiful creatures. And most of them are scared of people. They are generally not wanting to come at you. So you open your door or you head outside, they're scampering off. Now, I'm not going to promise that you never have to worry about a run-in with wildlife, and trash is obviously your biggest concern with the bears. They are scavengers of scavengers, I will tell you. But generally, you just have the opportunity to watch them and observe them and really enjoy being in and among nature and the trees and the season change and the snowfall. And it's just really a beautiful, quiet place to live with convenience. Quiet, convenient luxury. Now, some of you may be unbelievers, non-believers, right? You're going, you're talking about dirt roads, mountain living, remote, neighbors having to do roads, and I don't want anything to do with that. And it's possible it may not be for you. It is not a lifestyle for everyone. But if you have it in you to want to be a little more remote, you're going to get snow out here in Colorado anyway, right? So it's worth the conversation of what do you want in your lifestyle? We don't have to get you 40 acres. We can put you on a smaller lot. Do you want the trees? Are you wanting a mountain view? Are you wanting acreage? Are you wanting horse? Do you care about the well and septic? Do you only want to be on public water? There's always some give and some take. We don't have to have you on a neighbor maintained road. We could put you on one that's just an average everyday road. So it doesn't all have to stack up to be the most high maintenance home that there is. We could find just some middle ground. So don't let it all kind of cascade to this like, oh my gosh, I really think I couldn't do this. It can be just a really peaceful place to be if we get you in the right situation. I personally would not want 40 acres. I don't want to have to maintain that wild grass. Now, would I like the privacy? Would I like not to hear someone else's dogs? Yes, I would, but I don't want the work. So I do hear some of those things in the back of your mind. For some people, they love it, especially if you have horses, you want some chickens, you want goats to maintain your grass, then by all means. I will tell you, as you're kind of questioning if the work is worth it, part of the reason this area holds its value and has the value that it has, why we're seeing multi-million-dollar properties, why the average value is 1.4, why so many properties are $2 and $3 million, why we easily see an $8 million property sell, is exactly because of the amount of work that it takes to live out here. I don't mean you have to work hard for it. It's just because it's unique. It's not an everyday property. It's not your suburb next door. You can't just walk in and plug and play. And so it's a niche property, just like other luxury markets. And so if you're thinking about what is ROI for me, am I going to get the value back out of it? And is it a lifestyle that I want? You could have a luxury home that is a little bit more central to downtown, a luxury home that is just modern on a small lot. This is for folks who want space, right? So we're trading one type of luxury for another if that is the price point that you're heading for, right? For most people, this is really all about acreage, space, privacy, and a lifestyle that is completely unplugged. So my folks who sold their property in Sedalia, They sold in Sedalia. They ended up moving to a brand new suburban home in Castle Rock. Then they eventually sold that and went to Arizona. It's their early retirement home, still work, but it was like, hey, we're just gonna move to the sun now. Well, they had this beautiful property. It was 1.5 miles or so up this dirt road. They lived near a formation that's quite popular in the area called Elephant Rock. They were up top with 5 other houses. They had 270-degree views. We could see from the front range, we could see all of the mountain range out to the city. Stunning, stunning, stunning. And it was private as could be, a little half-acre lot. They did not have hardly anything to maintain. Their lot just went down and it was all trees. So they weren't mowing, they weren't caring, they weren't doing anything other than making sure their driveway was accessible to them multiple times a year, right? So you're just getting the snow out of the way. And they were like, well, there's snow we have to deal with, and our daughter left home, so we feel like maybe we ought to go into something smaller and a little easier, and it's just time. And I said, okay, that's fine. So they move and they go into suburbia and they feel cramped and they feel tight and they have neighbors. They can count like 20 houses around them and they don't like it. So they decide to make another change, and they have family, older parents down in Arizona, so they go to be near them. And now it's really hot and also a little cramped. And every time I talk to them, they wish they were back up here and kind of still wish they had their mountain house. And I have another very close friend. He's actually someone I work with on a regular basis. Multiple acres, 2 homes on these large acres out in Sedalia. And they talk about downsizing. They want to come into town a little bit closer just because of where they go to church, the grandkids they're with. And they think about being closer to healthcare as they're aging. And they go, I just can't imagine leaving the quiet and the privacy. And so that, I'm telling you, is what keeps people in this beautiful place. It is the quiet. And it really is more convenient than it seems. When they think about moving out of the area, or they do, and miss being there, they realize it's not as inconvenient as it seems at the time. Now, I am going to tell you, let's talk about snow removal. This isn't even in my notes to talk about, because you do get more snow up there. And when you're in the trees, this is one of the things I talk about for like evergreen and my folks who want to move into the foothills. Anytime you're in the trees, the snow stays. So when we're down here in all of our newer construction, homes that are less than 20 years old, the trees aren't as large. You really get a lot of snow melt really quickly after the storms. So unless you have one of those north-facing driveways, which are not good, it's within 2 days at the most, the snow's gone. When you live out in spaces like this, where you're essentially in a forest, loving all of the wildlife and the quiet and the pristine and the wind rustling through the pines and the leaves, the snow lingers. So it's cooler in the summer, but cooler in the winter. So there is a little bit more work during our colder months. And if you're not a snow person, this isn't going to be your thing. But you are gonna love it in the summer when it's 10 degrees cooler. So it is always a trade-off, always. And the same thing when you go into Evergreen. Evergreen is a place that requires more work on your house, more work to maintain, dealing with snow load. And it snows a lot more up in Evergreen than it does down here. So that $8 million property that I mentioned at the start of the video, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, it was almost on no one's radar that Sedalia would have properties in that price range or approaching that price range. But the people who were buying in there, the people living there, I think they knew full well. They're buying in, understanding the value of expansive acreage, understanding the convenience that this location offers, the strategic location that they have, the privacy. Oh my goodness, the amount of privacy. We have just talked about that, and the beauty of what is around them in nature. And the lucky ones even got in before COVID and that big collective shift toward seclusion and a little bit more elbow room. Space like this is going to become more and more rare in Denver. And with Sedalia having its strategic positioning, which we've kind of glossed over, but it is just north of Castle Rock, which means it is right next to world-class shopping, an abundance of dining opportunities, so many school options if you have kids. So while you drive home and in 15 minutes you have all of your expansive acreage and your quiet place to have coffee and watch the animals roam, you drive 15 minutes back out and you get to have Whole Foods and Sam's or Costco or fantastic tacos. And then you are no further away from getting to downtown or the airport than if you lived in Castle Rock, just because of the positioning. Residents in Sedalia totally know about the QCL factor. Last year, only 75 homes sold. Not because it's not impressive, but because people who live there don't want to move out. There are thousands of homes and residents in Sedalia, but the turnover is low because of just how desirable, how comfortable it is to be here. If you'd like to find your own quiet retreat here in South Denver, please reach out. I would love to connect and see if Sedalia or one of our other quiet locations is right for you. And if you're curious how Sedalia stacks up against some of our other luxury markets, check out these videos. I think you'll be surprised at what you find. And I will see y'all next week.